Democrat Mark Scheffler is responding today after the Wisconsin Elections Commission rejected two challenges that would have kept him off the ballot in his campaign for Congress. Chief political reporter Jason Zimmerman is following up this story. He is live for us in the studio with the latest. Jason.
Cami, that decision came down just hours ago, keeping Scheffler on the ballot for the August primary. And beyond that, if he prevails in a matchup against two other Democrats hoping to take on Republican Tony Weed this November, Rick Crossan, an opponent of Scheffler's in the Democratic primary, filed one of those challenges, saying Scheffler's campaign failed to use the proper forms required under Wisconsin Act 126, which took effect just in late March. It basically requires those collecting signatures to be qualified electors of Wisconsin and to certify that eligibility on the petition form. He also accused Scheffler of citing the August 11th primary as the election date instead of November 3rd. The other complaint, filed by a person with ties to the Republican Party of Brown County, made similar allegations. Short time ago, Scheffler responded to the vote by the commission, which was unanimous.
The people of Northeast Wisconsin deserve a campaign focused on earning support, not limiting choices. That's been a defining principle of this campaign from the beginning, and we look forward to making our case to voters across the district in the months ahead.
I did reach out to Rick Crossan, who tells me he respects this decision by the Wisconsin Elections Commission and is looking forward to the campaign heading into August 11th. Cami, back to you.